Welcome back to another exciting video. What we're talking about today are my top 5 most underrated guitar players ever. So you're probably wondering why I'm doing this video, because there's 9,974,968,722 of these exact videos out there. But out of that, I've probably watched 5 million of them. And the reason I'm watching all these videos, as you can see behind me, I have torn everything down inside of this podcast room. And this is probably the last video that will be shot here. Maybe one more. It depends on how fast we can get things moved, because of building a fence and around the backyard and everything else. It's just a lot of things going on. And actually, here's some pictures of the new podcast room. You can see where we're putting up the reflection panels. And I built the sound panels. Those are actually soundproofing panels, but obviously, you know, it's not a soundproof room. This is more just to cut down the reflection that is in the room, because you know how rooms get very reflective and echoey, and it just drives me insane. And when we were putting these up, Tara had this great idea, and she said, hey, why don't we make these more of a 3D type of thing? And, you know, she kind of laid out the design for me, and I was like, well, hell, if we're going to do that, then I'm going to run some LEDs up behind it also. So we had to build the brackets, and you can see some pictures here where we got this, where it's all extended out. And then, hang on, that picture is not supposed to be in there. I don't even know how that got in there. Get that out of there. And, but you can see here how they're extended out, and you can see where I've run the LED lights behind them, and of course the multicolor LEDs. And it's going to be pretty badass when it's all said and done. And there's literally nothing left in this room except for the few things I am using to shoot this video. And I put the, that's actually a green screen behind me, but I put a black drop over it. So you don't see all the crap that is left on the wall, all the marks that I've made on the wall. And, so it's going to be pretty exciting when they come in here to paint this, because this is, when I moved back from Alabama, I just moved into an apartment, and because I sold my house a while back. And I got to be honest, I was probably just going to stay in an apartment forever, but more on that coming up. We went and played the show, and I had a bunch of people shoot some video, something that I want to put on my YouTube channel, and that was 3 weeks ago. Be 4 weeks this weekend. And out of all those people that shot video, I've not gotten a single damn one of them. And I had them come there specifically to do this for me, to shoot it on their cell phones, and I can't get the video from them. It is like freaking pulling teeth. And one of them is my daughter. So I called my daughter. I'm like, baby, come on. I need this video. I need you to download this. Well, Dad, I'm having problems with Dropbox, yada, yada. I'm like, oh my God. So hopefully I can commandeer one of these videos and get this thing up, because it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool what I'm going to put on here. It's, well, you'll see. You'll see. And anyway, so the podcast room is almost finished, so everything will be moving over to there. And on a quick note, man, we've just been playing. One of the reasons I haven't been here, besides building all that stuff, we've just been playing all these weird-ass shows lately in the most obscure places. And you know, if you play in a band and people call you, you know, and you're, oh, yeah, sure, you know, this is what we charge. Okay, we'll pay it. Yeah, we'll be there. But you don't know what you're walking into if you've never been there till you walk into it. And we played this one venue, and I went, what the hell is this? And it was very compact, to say the least. And it was just a very, very odd show we've played. And but we've been doing a bit of playing. And it's just, the time has just been, well, just zapping away from me left and right. But like I said, I wanted to do this video real quick because I've seen bazillions of these videos, and none of them choose the guitar players that I would choose, which I find to be very weird, because a lot of them, you know, they do their top 10, and half of the people on there are so obscure, you would never know who they are. And even if you're a guitar player, chances are you may not even know who they are, because you just cannot keep track of every guitar player in the world. So what I based mine on, I did a top 5, not a top 10, because let's be honest, I could have done a top 100. There's so many underrated guitar players, it's not funny. But what I did is I chose guitar players that, simply because of the enormity of a song, or the enormity of the band, or maybe the singer, they kind of get lost in the shuffle, and they really don't get the credit they deserve for being the amazing guitar players that they deserve, because of, like I said, the enormity of some other project. And all these people have had great success great success. Their bands have had great success. But sometimes the guitar players just kind of get pushed under the rug because of the enormity, like I said, of the single, of the album, or whatever it is. Or if you have, maybe you have a singer that's just, gets all the accolades. So I only done a top 5, but I do have an honorable mention, which I'm going to bring in right now. My honorable mention is Chris DeGarmo and Michael Wilton from the band Queensryche, which is one of my top 3 bands of all time. Absolutely love Queensryche. Now, all these guitar players got their kicks, got their things, their motivation, their mojo out of the 80s. And the reason I did it from out of the 80s, because there's a bazillion great guitar players out there right now. And like I said, I could do a top 100 easily of underrated guitar players. And luckily, metal has come back pretty good. And we actually have shredders out there again shredding, which was, back in the 90s. I love grunge. But, the whole Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, the anti-solo group, they could all just piss off and go away. If you don't want to play solo, then just quit being a damn musician. That's like going to a pianist and saying, you know what, play the piano under the song, but when it comes time for the piano solo, let's just cut that out. Let's just give me a freaking break. And all those people, I don't like guitar solos, man. I just want to punch every one of them literally in the head. We do this for a reason. We don't do this so we can sit around and bang on power chords for a 4-minute song and just stand there with our heads up our butt looking like idiots. I already look like an idiot. I don't need any help looking like an idiot. So you know what? We're going to solo. And if you don't like it, get that real quick. And okay, now you guys know how I am. You know how I like to talk. And you know how I've got my stories. So real quick story time before I get back to Chris DeGarmo and Michael Wilton. Back onto the solo thing, just reminded me of this. I was in this band and had this amazing singer. It was a guy, man. This dude could just well. He could absolutely well. And when I would play solos, he would leave the stage. And I thought, okay, well, I appreciate that. He's letting me take the limelight. Usually, the singer will get the accolades, and I'm fine with that. Dude, I got no problem being in the back. I'm cool with that. But he would always leave the stage when I would solo. And so we had a show come up, and he came up to me, and he's like, hey, man, we're going to do this song, and I need you to cut the solo out. I said, what? Yeah, no, I can't play the solo, man. You got to cut the solo out. I said, first off, the solo is a big part of the song. What the hell are you talking about? Yeah, man, just, because when you're playing the solo, I really don't have anything to do, and it takes the focus off of me. And I said, excuse me? yeah, when you're soloing, then there's just nothing for me to do when you're soloing. And since I don't have the focus, and I said, you know what? I'm going to play the damn solo. So we did the show, and at the end of the show, I unplugged my guitar from my amp, packed my shit up, and I said, goodbye. And I left that band right there. I'm not going to play that shit with anybody, man. I'm not going to play it. So anyway, I digress. So that was story time. And, man, I love story time. I got a lot of stories. Somebody actually sent me a thing and said, dude, we need stories. We need stories from the stage and all that. And I was like, all right, I can do that. I can do that. And that was one of my stories from the stage. And it was a little one, but it was all the information that was required to get the story across from point A to point B. And here we go back to Chris DeGarmo and Michael Wilton. The reason I love these guys, because they are a songwriting force and monster guitar players. Another thing I love about these two guys is they're absolutely interchangeable. When you listen to them in Queensryche, you don't know who's playing which solo because their styles are shockingly similar and their sounds are very similar, which I like. You don't have these massive contrasting guitar sounds in their tone. They're very similar, and it just adds to everything they do adds to the music, and that is what makes a great guitar player. When they do things that actually benefit the song. You don't go up there and solo and play 9 billion notes just because you can. If it doesn't benefit the overall picture, then you're just pissing in the wind and wasting everybody's time. So these guys were phenomenal at adding in things that belonged where they belonged and writing absolute masterpieces of music. Now, they came about in 1988 with Operation Mindcrime. And everybody most people still think that is their best album, but I disagree. I do believe their best album is Empire, which Chris DeGarmo wrote almost every single song. Now, he had help from other guys in the band. as in Wilton and Tate, and some outsiders that came in. But he did pen Silent Lucidity by himself, which is that is their pinnacle song. When I first heard the song, I was like, when the shit did Pink Floyd come out with a new song? And then I listened to the vocals and I was like, now I love Gilmour, and I love Gilmour's voice. For what they did, Gilmour's voice was spot on the money. Nobody can sing Pink Floyd better than David Gilmour. But then I heard Jeff Tate and I was like, what? I mean, dude, Jeff Tate, come on. Come on. Which is going to be when I do my best singers, Jeff Tate is in that group. Definitely. He is just a beast of a singer. And then I realized, hang on, this is Queensryche. And, but these guys are phenomenal. Listen to their music. And if you've never heard the album Empire, I strongly recommend you listen to it. Listen to the guitar work from Wilton and DeGarmo. It is absolutely stunning. And actually, my favorite song on there, which is one that it's got some damn good guitar work on it, but it's not their shreddier stuff, is Della Brown. Della Brown off Empire is by far my favorite song on Empire. And Empire's got some amazing, amazing songs. It had Jet City Woman, Another Rainy Night. Like I said, Della Brown, which is my all-time favorite one. Best I Can, rocking that song on it. And Empire, of course, which is just a great damn song. Now, on Another Rainy Night, I love Chris DeGarmo, and I love the way these guys play. So I may actually do a tutorial on the solo to Another Rainy Night, which is actually one of my, I don't know, it's one of my all-time favorite solos. It works so well in that song, and it just comes straight in. There's no build-up or anything, dude. It just pops straight in, rocking. And if you haven't listened to it, listen to Another Rainy Night, and listen to the solo on that and actually, it's Wilton that's playing the solo on that, if I'm not mistaken. Fantastic song. And if you have not heard the album Empire, listen to the album Empire. It is absolutely amazing. So, in my would have been number 6 had I done a top 10, I'm going to put Michael Wilton and Chris DeGarmo, man. Those guys are a force to be reckoned with. But now, in my top 5, coming in at number 5, Nope. I don't even know what that is. Oh my God, that's irritating. Do you buy these things for if they don't have the shit you need on them? That's creepy. Well, I thought maybe I had a drum roll, so coming in at number 5, drum roll. Yes, that is correct. Mick Mars from Motley Crue. Now, you're probably thinking, why is Mick Mars on this list? Mick Mars is not a shredder. Oh, I digress. That is not the right word to use there. Regardless, Mick Mars doesn't have to shred. You don't have to be a shredder. There's other aspects of it. And what Mick Mars does, he does phenomenally. This guy lays down some absolutely nasty riffs. This dude is a riff meister. And you take Eddie Van Halen, for all his accolades and all his greatness and his guitar goddom, and goddumb. Let's get that straight. I did not say GD, his goddumb. Make sure. Yeah. Mick Mars is not that guy. But like I said, for all of Eddie Van Halen's greatness, the thing Eddie Van Halen does the best is rhythm. Eddie Van Halen is by far the best rhythm player in the world. Forget all the shreddy stuff and all the tapping crap. Listen to the rhythms. They're phenomenal. Mick Mars is a weirdo version of that. This dude lays down some of the nastiest riffs you've ever heard. Come on, man. Live Wire, Kickstart My Heart. I mean, these things are just brutal, nasty riffs. And without Mick Mars laying that base, that foundation, the music there's nothing left without Mick Mars. And like I said, this is one of the guys that I think the band became bigger than the singular, which is how it should be. But sometimes before, you got Tommy Lee, and then you had Vince, Vince Neil. Mick Mars he was the guy kind of riding under the rug. He was that little bit of dirt that when your neighbors come over, you lifted up the rug and you kind of kicked that shit under there. That's Mick Mars. And the dude is absolutely a phenomenal rhythm player. His leads, okay, they weren't that much. They weren't that complicated. Doesn't matter. Because what he did added to the song wonderfully. And you simply could not have that band without Mick Mars. And looks that kill. I mean, listen to the rhythms, dude. I mean, they're so just on the button. And also something else people don't think about Mick Mars, dude, his tone is freaking nasty. I did a video of the guitar players with the absolute worst tone. Absolutely pained me. Still got the scar in my heart because I had to mention Randy Rhoads, my all-time favorite guitar player, but his tone sucked. His tone sucked, but it's Randy Rhoads, dude. I mean, his tone can suck. He's so good, he doesn't need good tone. That's how good Randy Rhoads is. He's so damn good, he does not need good tone. Enough said about that. But Mick Mars, just listen to the foundations he lays down under the Motley Crue songs. Who, by the way, his name is not Mick Mars. His actual name is Robert Deal. I did not know that until I started doing this stuff, and I thought, well, hang on, Mick Mars isn't this dude's real name, so I had to look it up. And he actually got the idea. He saw a band called White Horse, and the vocalist, his name was Mickey Mars, which is where Robert Dill got the idea for Mick Mars when he got into Motley Crue. But still, Mick Mars is absolutely a beast. And to make it a beast, he has, let me make sure I pronounce this right. He has ankylosing spondylitis, which is a form of arthritis that really gets into the spine. And it loves to attack all those little joints down around L4, L5. And we get into S1, the sacroiliac joint, where it goes into the pelvis. Yes, I know a lot of shit about that because I did work in surgery for many years as a surgical radiology tech. So I know a lot of shit about bones. And so it's literally stiffening this guy up. He wasn't fancy. He wasn't flashy. He didn't jump around the stage. He stood in one place for most of the show, and he did what he had to do. And that was lay down those nasty riffs with amazing tone. So on number 5, we have Mr. Mick Mars popping in at number 5. Let me move my order around here. Bada bing, bada boom. Coming in at number 4, and yes, I had to write these down because I'd never get the order right if I didn't. We're going to jump on to Mr. Warren DeMartini from Rat. That is correct. Warren DeMartini, this guy is an absolute monster guitar player that never got the accolades of Eddie Van Halen or Randy Rhoads or Zakk Wylde or any of those guys. This guy is a beast. Again, I'm a guitar player. Forget the soloing. Listen to the rhythm playing on this guy. It is so freaking chaotic. It is beautiful. The rhythm on Lay It Down, the opening riff, is blisteringly wonderful and pretty damn hard to play. I mean, the guy must have fingers, man. I mean, they got to be like spider legs. Making some of those stretches, it's incredibly hard for me to do. And it's just tough, man. So this guy's just, his fingers have got to be like a foot long, just to make some of these insane stretches he does. But listen to the rhythm playing, especially on Lay It Down. And if you took a song and you said, okay, give me your variation of the song, and here's 100 guitar players, I guarantee you I could pick Warren DeMartini out every single time because he is masterful at playing around the chord. You take a regular C chord, to everybody else is going to go, bring. He ain't going to do that. He's going to bump, and it's all going to be around that C. Very cool, very tasteful, very masterful. Warren DeMartini is my number 4. He is an absolute beast. And real quick, what's really cool is all these guys from the 80s, if you do any research on this, all these guitar players, they all drifted in and out of the same bands. It's just neater than shit, man. Because Warren DeMartini actually replaced Jake E. Lee, who went off to go play with Ozzy. So Jake E. Lee was in Rat. He went to go play with Ozzy. Warren DeMartini stepped in to play for Rat, which Jake E. Lee is going to intersect with another one of my guitar players that I got coming up in my list right here. And like I said, these guys, they just all went in the same circle. The amount of talent they had in the 80s in L.A. in that one little bitty amount of time was just shocking. So moving on, Jake E. Lee, number 4. Check it out. If you don't know anything about Rat, listen to the opening riff of Lay It Down. It is absolutely brutal. One more thing, real quick on DeMartini. What I was telling you about how these guys came all the way around is I wrote this down just so I could make sure I got it all right because I would never remember this, because I had Delta. I got COVID brain, man. So after Rat, Warren DeMartini went and played with Dokken, which had George Lynch in it, which is an absolute beast. He was another honorable mention, George Lynch, but he did not make my list. For the reason, when you think of the big 80s hits and the big 80s bands, Dokken was not one of them. They were a great band, but they just didn't get to the level of Bon Jovi and Rat and all those guys. So that's the reason I left George Lynch out, who, by the way, is a monster guitar player. Monster. So he actually would have been number 7 had I done a top 10. But after that, after he went and played with Dokken, he left Dokken and he went and jumped in with Whitesnake. And he replaced Doug he left there and then replaced Doug Aldrich in the band Dio. And that's what I was saying, man. These guys they just all circled around and just ran through the same bands like crazy. All right, so this brings me to number 3. And at number 3, we got Mr. Reb Beach. And if you do not know who Reb Beach is, then shame on you. Well, just shame on you for not knowing who the hell Reb Beach is. Reb Beach, in my opinion, is literally one of the most underrated guitarists, and that's why he's number 3 on my list. Reb Beach plays for Winger, the most hated band coming out of the 1980s. And regardless of how hated they were not hated as much as Nickelback. And when I was making a list of underrated guitar players, nobody from Nickelback will ever make my list unless it's the list of the most suckiest bands. Then we'll throw Nickelback on there. But Reb Beach, monster guitar player, and this guy is a freaking shredder in every sense of the word of a shredder. And there again, you may not know who Reb Beach is, simply because the band Winger, they did have quite a bit of commercial success. And then you had Kip Winger. Let's face it, the guy was so pretty, we were not sure if he was actually a guy. We were kind of on the fence about the whole damn thing. But love him or hate him, Kip Winger had a monster voice, and the guy can well on a freaking bass. And actually, these guys were actually metal dudes. And then they signed their contract, and then the corporation steps in, like the corporation always does, and screws everything up for everybody. And that's kind of what they did for them, because these guys were full-on meddlers. But regardless of that, these guys did have pretty good commercial success because of the music they had written. With their staple, they had a few great songs, but their staple was Being Headed for a Heartbreak, which is a masterfully haunting song. This song is written in D Lydian, which is the 4th mode of A major. And that's why the song kind of has this haunting sound, in my opinion, if you listen to the progression of it, especially towards the end of the song. But to make sure I got this right, Reb Beach, he was a studio musician. And I'm going to tell you, you want a tough job, be a studio musician. You have to know how to play anything at any point at any time. Case in point, when Michael Jackson was doing a Thriller, and you may or may not know, but Steve Lukather played a lot of the guitar tracks on that album, and they come in when he did Human Nature, which is an absolutely brilliant song by Michael Jackson, and they told him and said, hey man, it's just missing something. Quincy Jones came up to Steve Lukather and said, we need you to add, something has to be in here. It's just missing something. And listen to the very tasteful guitar work inside of Human Nature. And that is all Steve Lukather, who did that on a whim. We need you to go into the studio and make it right. He walked into the studio and made it right. That's what a studio musician does, which Reb Beach was a studio musician. And he has played with the likes of Fiona, Howard Jones, Chaka Khan. Dude, my rapping skills suck. I can't even do that correctly. And Twisted Sister and many others. And like I said, it's amazing how these guys keep flipping through the same bands. It just was shocking to me. But Reb Beach, who now plays for Whitesnake, who Steve Vai played for and Jackie Lee has played for. It's just on and on, dude, how these guys circle through the same bands. And but if you want to hear something absolutely stunning and you want to hear some masterful guitar playing, listen to the outro solo to Headed for a Heartbreak, which in my opinion is literally the best outro solo ever written in the history of music. And listen, like I said, the music itself is pretty haunting if you listen to the progression they've got it in, but the guitar solo is equally as haunting, and it is absolutely brilliant the way it lays over the progression. Take a listen to that, and if that can make you think that this guy is one monster shredding guitar player, then God help you, because there's nothing I can do for you at that point. So coming in at number 3, we got Mr. Shredder, underrated, just a beast of a guitar player with the best outro ever written on a song, Mr. Reb Beach. Coming in at number 2, and this is one of the reasons why I did this list, because I have yet to see a list where this guy was listed on the most underrated guitar players. And he, in my opinion, is the second most underrated guitar player in the world. And that is Mr. Brad Gillis from Night Ranger, who by chance played with Ozzy, as did Jakey Lee. But, well, why do you say that? Why do you say that? Well, there again, you had Night Ranger. The Night Ranger had quite a bit of commercial success, but Brad Gillis was never elevated to that guitar god status, even though Brad Gillis is a guitar god. And I'm going to tell you, Brad Gillis is so much of a guitar god that when Randy Rhoads died, the last concert he had was right here in my hometown, Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where I'm sitting right now, which, by the way, we are having beautiful weather. I hate what's happening in Florida because that is my home state, and they're just getting battered right now by the storm that's coming in there. And I still got family down there. And but, you know, they're all going to be cool because they're pretty far inland in Florida. But Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne, last concert was here coming off the Diary of a Madman tour, heading down. And Randy Rhoads got into that airplane. The pilot was blah, 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 boom, hits Ozzy's tour bus. And we lose one of the absolute greatest, most prolific guitar players in the world. And he was just a child at that time. Just imagine the body of work we would have right now had Randy Rhoads not died in that plane crash. Who knows where he would have went to? Who knows the heights this kid would have soared to? Because at such a young age, he was already a freaking phenom. He is my favorite guitar player of all time. More on that in a subsequent video. But when Randy Rhoads got killed, Ozzy Osbourne was in the middle of the Diary of a Madman tour. Obviously, the tour goes on. Sad to say, life goes on. So they brought in this guy named Torme or Torm or something like that, and the guy just couldn't cut the chops. Well, no shit. It's Randy Rhoads. So what do? They go into panic mode. Who are we going to get? Who are we going to get? Who are we going to get? They get Mr. Brad Gillis, who goes in there, learns that shit on the bus, and kills it. Absolutely kills it. Now, is Brad Gillis Randy Rhoads? No, he's not. Brad Gillis is Brad Gillis. And Brad Gillis played Randy Rhoads' part, even though it didn't sound like Randy Rhoads because he's not Randy Rhoads, he's Brad Gillis. And this goes back to my favorite thing in the world, Mr. Eddie Van Halen. Well, why don't you play the guitar solo like so-and-so? Because I'm not so-and-so, I'm Eddie Van Halen. I love saying that. People, well, dude, you didn't play that guitar solo correctly. Kiss my ass. I'm not that guy. I'm Trace Taylor. Move along. Come on, move along, move along. Next, move along. So he goes in there, and granted, he does a superb job. Such a good job that Ozzy Osbourne hires him to be the guitar player, which ultimately he ended up leaving because, from what I understand, Ozzy was treating him like shit because he could not get over the death of Randy Rhoads. Now, I understand that. Now, that doesn't mean you treat your other guitar player, who's also a guitar god. That doesn't mean you treat them badly. But come on, getting over Randy Rhoads, dude, you literally have found the premier guitar player. After your career's tanked, this chick comes along named Sharon, kicks your ass up off the sofa, gets you motivated. You start looking for a guitar player and you run into Randy Rhoads. Give me a freaking break. Give me a break. And, I got another story time. No, I'm going to save. I need to make note of my story time. Hang on. I got to make note of this one. This one's just too cool. Yada, 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 yada. Ooh, I need story time music right now, dude. Do I have story time music? Do I have story time music? Oh, come on. I don't think I do. I don't have story time music. Well, I'll add some story time music. All right, I've made my note, and that is for a different story time. So, but Brad Gillis jumps in and then, like I said, knocks it out of the ballpark to the point where he gets fired by Randy Rhoads. Oh, and coming to think about it, man, I told you we've been playing these really obscure freaking places lately, man, just really odd. Well, here's a little clip of me playing, just a smidgen of, we do, Don't Tell Me You Love Me by Night Ranger, and here's a little bit of the guitar solo from yours truly. Now, there again, this is my take on the guitar solo. So, let's roll it. Now, when I'm learning guitar solos, like I said, I have to learn vocals, backing vocals, or lead vocals, backing whatever, usually backing because I got a monster singer. But I've also got to learn keyboards, rhythms, leads. I have very little time to learn the music. I really don't look at a whole lot of tab. Usually I play what I hear. And then if I need to refine it, I will go back over time and keep refining the solo. But I played this one, and this is what I heard when I played it. And I thought, you know what? I'm kind of curious as to what they're actually playing here. So I went and watched a video of Brad Gillis playing it, and I'm like, they're nothing alike. They're not even close. What I'm playing is completely different from what he's playing. It's in the same ballpark, but it's just done differently. But I got to think, I kind of like how I play it. So I just kept playing it my way. And it works, dude. And it's just, because it adds that little bit of flash that it needed in the guitar solo of that with all the tapping sequence. It adds that little bit of flash that you kind of need. Because let's be honest, it's about the show, dude. So, and it was such an odd venue. Such a weird venue we played at. It was just strange. But you know what? They pay us, we show up, we play. That's how the hell it works. So, coming out of that, but like I said, they did have quite a bit of commercial success. Sister Christian, absolutely fun solo to play. Learn that solo. Don't Tell Me Love Me, which we do, and When You Close Your Eyes, another fantastic song. Goodbye, which is one of their power ballads, also a very good song. But on that note, that is why Brad Gillis is my number 2 most underrated guitar player, simply because, forget everything else that he's done. Simply because this dude filled in for Randy Rhoads in the middle of Diary of a Madman and pulled that shit off. Absolutely amazing. God bless Brad Gillis and his talent, because the dude is a guitar god. He needs the credit he deserves. Coming in at the number 1 slot, and I do not have... That's my drum roll coming in. I got to fix this thing, man. That's my drum roll. Now, if you do not know who this guitar player is, go lay under a rock, take the rock, and bash yourself in the head till you become unconscious. Because this is literally the most underrated guitar player in the world. And like I said, all these guys cut their teeth in the 80s. This guy really, really cut his teeth in the 80s, and he went on and on and on and on and on because he is an absolute beast. He is a monster. There's 2 reasons I started playing guitar. Randy Rhoads and my number 1 pick, Mr. Gary Moore. Gary Moore is without a doubt the most underrated guitar player ever. Ever. And there again, Gary Moore, he kind of got his start back in the 70s, but nobody really knew him, because he jumped into, he played with Thin Lizzy for a while, jumped out and started his solo career. He released, I don't know how many albums in the 80s, 8 albums in the 80s. And they were very rock metal focused. Gary Moore was a shredder. He was a full balls out, to the wall metal guy, which you may not know that about Gary Moore. And in 1985, he released Out of Cover, Run for Cover. Let me look. Yeah, Run for Cover, which that was the one that kind of started to put him on the map. And it's a very weird, eclectic group of music. There's some metal on there. There's some rock and roll on there. There's power ballads on there. There's a little bit of blues on there. It's just kind of all over the place, but somehow Gary Moore seems to make it work, because even though he's changing his styles everywhere, you still know it's Gary Moore. And before he really, because Gary Moore's played a Fender Strat for a long time, but, he's well known for playing his Les Pauls. And actually, he had quite of a stint with the Les Paul Greenie. If you don't know what I'm talking about, do some research on it. Very fascinating. Greenie, Greenie. Check that out. Pretty fascinating stuff. But on that album, he put Empty Rooms, which is an absolutely fantastic song, and kind of gave us a glimpse into where he was going. And he kept moving on through the 80s, but in 1990, he released Still Got the Blues. Now, that changed his course. That changed everything. And that's when everybody has their blues, this, that, the other. You had Jimi Hendrix, his blues rocky stuff. You had Eric Clapton, the most overrated guitar player in the world. Eric Clapton. Well, either Eric Clapton or The Edge. One of those two. Literally the most overrated guitar player ever. But then you had Slow Hand, Eric Clapton. He had his style of blues. And, like I said, you had Jimi Hendrix. You had Stevie Ray Vaughan, who was a beast with his Texas blues. Gary Moore kind of had his own thing going on. He was basically a shred blues. But love Gary Moore or hate Gary Moore, he is literally the only person who can hold a stick as far as melody on a guitar to Gary Moore would be David Gilmour. The two most melodic players in this world, but on two total opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's kind of hard to put them in the same ballpark. Gary Moore's guitar vocalism is just as brilliant as his actual vocalism. His guitar talks to you the same way the lyrics do. Absolutely stunning. Listen to Still Got the Blues, to the beautiful intro that ultimately builds up to just a freaking shred fest at the end of the song, and it all freaking works. And the guy's an absolutely monster, brilliant, beautiful songwriter. Somehow he took this magic of rock power ballads and blues and bashed them together, and it came out brilliantly. Listen to Separate Ways by Gary Moore. Beautiful, beautifully constructed song. The vocals work, the female backing vocals, the guitar works, all the horns, the pads, the keyboards. Absolutely fantastic. Listen to Separate Ways by Gary Moore. And something most people don't associate with Gary Moore is this guy was actually a tone monster. His tone is fantastic because he has an exceptional use of those volume knobs on those Les Pauls, which is just by far something most people really don't do enough, is actually use the volume knobs. Tone knobs you can use sometimes, maybe not use them, but the volume knobs, check that out, because that really does shape your tone a lot. So yeah, if you want to hear, listen to Falling in Love with You. Listen to the tone on that guitar. It is shocking. I have tried to recreate that tone more times than I can count, and I cannot get it. And I went and talked to a buddy of mine who's he's like me, he's a guitar weirdo. And I had him listen to it. He couldn't create the sound. And I was like, dude, it's got to be something they did in the studio, but that sound is absolutely magical. Falling in Love with You, listen to that song. But my all-time favorite song by Gary Moore, well, I can't say it's my all-time favorite, but it'd definitely be in my top 3, is The Messiah Will Come Again. You want to hear somebody that makes a good, like I said, he doesn't need words because his guitar is the melody, and it's beautifully composed and beautifully written. This guy is an absolute beast. Parisian Walkway, Story of the Blues, Still Got the Blues, and like I said, my all-time favorite, which I just mentioned, Blues for Narada, listen to that, Empty Rooms, I'm Always Gonna Love You. This guy's just written a bevy of beautiful songs. He's played with every other blues guitar player in the freaking world. He's played with everybody, and unfortunately, he died in Spain in 2011, because I would love to have known what else he would have churned out had he not have died. He is the absolute beast. He is my #1 underrated guitar player, forget coming out of the 80s, of all time, Mr. Gary Moore. So there you have it. My list, my top 5, with, of course, my boys from Queensryche sliding in there. I should have probably done 7 and added George Lynch, because George Lynch does deserve it, because he is a beast of a guitar player. But like I said, his band just never really hit the heights as some of the other bands coming out of it, probably because of Don Dokken was such a dick. That's probably why. But on that note, that is my top 5. That is my top 5. If you agree or disagree, let me know, or don't let me know. If somebody else you think should have been on that list, let me know. And I don't know, if somebody comes up and just absolutely knocks my head off, maybe we'll revise it. Like I said, I could have done a top 100, so I just did top 5. 6 through 10 don't really matter. Everybody wants to know the top 5 is. When people do top 100 lists, what do? You go straight to the damn top 5. That's what everybody does. So let's just do top 5. 10's too much. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up right there. This may or may not be the last video inside of this room. I may be over at the new one. And like I said, you saw the pictures. I do have my Instagram up, by the way. Don't have piss on it, just a couple little tidbit of things. I'm starting to post stuff up on it, but I will put a link down in the bottom. And check out my Patreon page. I'm finally starting to mess around with that a little bit. I got to get that going because you guys jumping on the Patreon page helps me do what I do and supports this channel and helps me keep this thing going because we've got some seriously cool things coming up. This may be the last one shot here. There may be one more. I don't know. But regardless, you've seen what's coming up on the new room. It is going to be super awesome, and we're going to be rocking on from there. So on that note, let's tie this thing up again. That was my top 5 most underrated guitar players. Agree, disagree, leave me a note, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, and then we will go from there. So as the great Sammy Hagar says, if you miss the beat, you lose the rhythm, and nothing falls into place. And until the next video, all my friends, God bless everybody, and rock on.